Alright, so for anyone who's confused about the timeline here, there are 3 months between John Wick 3 and John Wick 4. The majority of Ballerina takes place during month 2 of those 6 months. So that'd be enough time for him to recover from his fall off the roof of the Continental and be in this film. I guess. So Ballerina is a spin-off of John Wick that I have been anticipating for many years. Long ago, before this was ever greenlit, they were talking about John Wick and Atomic Blonde crossing paths, but that never happened. Then it was announced that this film was in development, but it kind of sat around for a long time, it felt like. I remember hearing casting rumors that Chloe Grace Moretz was going to lead this film, but it wasn't until Ana de Armas was cast that it felt like production actually gained traction and this thing was becoming a reality. And the film was supposed to release last year, but under the direction of Len Weissman wasn't delivering enough on the action, so then Chad Stahelski came in and decided, you know what, I'm gonna reshoot all this action and delay the movie. So how did it turn out? Honestly, it was pretty freaking awesome. After seeing Ana de Armas handle herself in an action sequence in No Time to Die 4 years ago, I had a good feeling about this one. I certainly had faith that she'd deliver in the acting department, but I think No Time to Die was really what sold me on the idea of her leading an action film. And the best part about her character, Eve, is the fact that she has her own unique fighting style because, as the film very much points out,
I can deny it no longer. I am small.
She has to fight dirty in order to go toe-to-toe with some of these guys, almost like she's being taught by Terry Silver.
A man can't stand. He can't fight.
A man can't breathe. He can't fight.
A man can't see. He can't fight.
Because she can't just walk in and take guys down twice her size with one punch. She's kicking dudes in the crotch, climbing all around them, doing whatever she possibly can to take them out. I really like that they didn't exactly make her an expert, though. Like, sure, we jumped 12 years to show that she's been living at the Ruska Roma this whole time, and that's kind of where John Wick 3 and this film intersect. And then there's another 2-month jump to her in her prime, but even still, she's not John Wick. Like, she's certainly not an incompetent assassin, but she takes damage. She gets overpowered. What I mean to say is, she's not a girl boss, and that is very refreshing. They don't just make her Jane Wick. She got a compelling origin where, as a child, her father was killed in front of her, and so then she's brought to the Ruska Roma where she's trained to become an assassin, and eventually this would lead to her lifelong revenge quest. Well, I guess John's story kind of started out with a tragedy that spiraled into a revenge quest, so maybe she is Jane Wick. Whatever, it's different. She also really likes using grenades and flamethrowers, and believe me, that makes for some really fun action. My buddy who I saw this with pointed out that this is basically what we should have gotten from the Black Widow movie. Now, obviously, Black Widow didn't have an R rating, but like the grittiness, the grounded nature, that would have been a lot better than whatever that third act was supposed to be. Personally, I don't hate Black Widow. I think it's a very alright Marvel movie, but seriously, they go way too big in that third act, and something a little bit more centralized, a little bit more grounded would have been a lot better, and I think this film laid out a perfect template for how they could have done it. I will say, you can definitely tell which parts are directed by Len Weissman and which parts are directed by Chad Stahelski. I don't know what it looked like before the reshoots, but it's probably for the best that they did what they did. That said, because of it, it doesn't feel as stylistically cohesive as some of the other John Wick films, but it certainly does look good. It's just different. Maybe I'm contradicting myself. Whatever. And it is really fun how the narrative twists and turns in ways that are, for the most part, unexpected, and blending that with the action makes for a really entertaining film. I also just appreciate that this movie feels like it's actually fulfilled an arc by the end of its story, which is more than I can say for John Wick 3, which obviously was building up so it could, eventually bridge over into John Wick 4, but that film started out really strong, and it kind of gets lost in the action and in the spectacle, and eventually starts rabbit holing down a couple other things to the point where by the end of it, it doesn't feel like John had fully completed any sort of character arc. Still love John Wick 3 though. Don't get me wrong. Breaks my heart that this is Lance Reddick's last movie. Honestly, I had no idea he was even going to be in this until I saw the trailer and he was in it. I was genuinely shocked because of how much production delays this was suffering, and I didn't know if he was even alive at the time that they were shooting it, but here he is one last time, and it was nice to at least see him in that. But it does suck because they could easily make another Ballerina film if they wanted to, set between 3 and 4 yet again, but he's obviously just not going to be around for it. But the real question that everyone wants to know, how involved is John Wick in this film? He's all over the posters. He's in all the trailers. Keanu Reeves is an executive producer on the film itself. And he could have been cut out and it wouldn't have made a difference. I really hate to say it, but it's true. Kind of like how Norman Reedus is also in this movie, but he could have really been played by any other actor. There wasn't anything about this character that demanded it be Norman Reedus other than the fact that he's a recognizable name. He is pretty cool, and it is fun to see him in an action flick, so I'm really glad that he was in the film, but not the most, like, involved character in the plot. You get some pretty cool action sequences with him, but other than that, he's not all that essential to what we're doing, and again, just about any other actor could have played that role. Same goes with John Wick. John Wick could have been completely cut out of the film entirely. He could have just appeared briefly as a little cameo at the end or at the beginning or whenever. His role could have been filled by a completely different character. It wouldn't have mattered. He does get in on the action though, but you can kind of tell that a lot of the fight choreography, especially the hand-to-hand stuff, was probably done by Keanu Reeves' stunt double. There's just a lot of shots of the hair hanging in his face or where his back's to the camera, and also where he's kind of rolling around on the ground a lot faster than I would expect Keanu to be moving at his age. Keanu is also just doing his typical Keanu thing. Man of few words, line delivery, not the best. Like the first scene where Eve and John actually interact, it's just so weird seeing the stark contrast between the actor's performance because Ana de Armas is really selling her performance.
How do I start doing what you do?
And then there's Keanu Reeves, who's just kind of like, it seems like you already have.
Looks like you already have.
But you can't help but love the guy, so who cares? You know, did you want John Wick in the movie or did you not want John Wick in the movie? There is one thing that's a little bit spoilery that I do want to talk about related to the film, so I'm just going to put up this warning. And if you don't want to know anything, you don't want to have any... I just bumped my mic. If you don't want to hear anything that I have to say because you don't want the movie ruined for you in any capacity whatsoever and you haven't seen the movie yet, then please skip to this time code in the video and I promise you won't hear any more spoilers past that point in the video. And we are getting into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. Spoilers begin now. So something I was talking about with some of the people around me when I saw this movie in the theater was we were trying to figure out like where in the timeline this takes place, and I was like, oh well, this makes sense because, you know, it said it was 2 months later and there's 6 months between John Wick 3 and 4, so obviously it's just the second month, and that's kind of what I talked about at the beginning of this video. But then something that they pointed out was like, but why did the Ruska Roma call him to handle this? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point, because in John Wick 3 they punch his ticket, so to speak, so he can get passage to Casablanca, and then like the director literally says you can never come back here ever again. And then it's not until halfway through John Wick 4 where he meets up with Natalia Tena's character and she hires him to go take out Keela, played by Scott Adkins, and after he's done that job, then he's able to mend his like relationship with the Ruska Roma, with his family again, when he burns his arm on that like thing, and that's when he's basically back in their good graces. The funny thing is, this movie takes place before John Wick 4, and yet the director is calling him to do something for her, even though she basically completely disavowed him from the Ruska Roma. That just seems really weird. The other thing, too, that I thought was really weird is if John Wick is doing all these side quests in between John Wick 3 and 4, why is the first thing we see in John Wick 4 him presumably recovering from his injury, punching a post in the Bowery King's lair? Like, the suit that the Bowery King gives him is the same clothes that he's wearing in the third act of Ballerina. So is it assumed that that took place in a different point before the 6 years? Like, did that take place before Ballerina and then he goes to this area and then does this job for the director and then he goes to kill the elder in the middle of the desert? Like, what? They're getting a little convoluted. Obviously, they just wanted an excuse to put John Wick in the film because it would help the marketability, but it is kind of like a continuity breaker, if you will. I don't really... I don't want to think too hard about it because these are John Wick movies after all, but if you really are going to do something like that, you probably should have a better explanation than just no explanation at all. One last thing I would like to say. I went and saw this at the Alamo Drafthouse in the Twin Cities area, and I highly recommend anyone who hasn't been to an Alamo Drafthouse in the United States, please go to these theaters because they actually care about theater etiquette. The sound system was incredible. I saw Novocaine earlier this year at an Alamo Drafthouse as well, and the sound, I remember coming out of that movie going, was that not the like loudest movie I've ever seen in my life or what? And the same situation here. The gunfire, the explosions, everything's freaking awesome. The picture quality is really great too. And honestly, I would rather go to an Alamo Drafthouse screening in standard digital than an IMAX screening at my local AMC, just because of how much better the quality was, especially considering the price I'm paying. But overall, I had a good time with this one. I had some concerns given the production and the fact that the review embargoes were only allowing positive reviews in first, but I'm happy to say if you're a John Wick fan, I think you'll enjoy this one. And so for a score out of 10, I'm going to give this one an 8. So Ballerina, were you following along with the events just fine, or was it a little bit confusing for you too? Did you love the film? Did you hate the film? Do you think this is better than some of the other John Wick films, or do you think this is bottom tier? Either way, personally, I think that this is at least better than that Continental TV show that they dumped onto Peacock and nobody ever wants to talk about again. Regardless of what you think though, if you're going to disagree with someone in the comments, don't be a jerk about it and go at each other's throats. This is just a movie after all, not the most important thing in the world. If you want to support the channel, you can certainly hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell so you know when I'm uploading. And if you want more content from me that isn't YouTube exclusive, I have 4 links in the description that'll take you to 4 social media platforms where I post tons of reviews that don't always make it onto this channel for movies, TV shows, and video games. And believe me, the reviews that do make it onto this channel, I post onto those platforms long before I have the time to edit together a video, because these take a long time to edit, believe it or not. So be sure to check that out. And until next time, guys, God be with you. Take care.